Rodrigo, can you hear me?
Yes, girls.
Okay, I will try to do a screen share very quickly.
Okay.
It looks like it's working.
It's working
Can
now.
you see my screen? Yeah. All good.
Now, Tomo, you can present your starter slide.
Okay, hold on. I need to answer people coming in.
Good morning, everyone. We'll be starting in a few minutes to allow everyone to join. So please be patient with us. Good morning again, ladies and gentlemen. We are pleased to welcome you here on this webinar organized by the Center of Entrepreneurship and the Sustainable Energy Group, both under the Botswana International University of Science and Technology. We are especially pleased to welcome the speakers and you, the audience, in this webinar. We are very much looking forward to learning and hearing more about the future of renewable energy, innovation and entrepreneurship, and the role BU students and alumni are playing in driving a more sustainable Botswana in today's session. My name is Taboka Motlhabane. I'm a master's student here at BUST and co-founder and director at Women in Energy, and I'll be moderating today's session. Energy is an essential multifaceted feature in economic growth of our nation, Botswana, driving key industries such as mining, production, transport, and consumption. Imagine if you were to shop in a dark mall or work under an underlit room. It simply wouldn't be as fun as and effective as working in a well-lit room. It has been argued that energy security and growth in the energy security and the growth in energy use have been directly linked to the growth in GDP. From inception, BUST noticed the importance of this facet in the economy and established a course in energy engineering, one of the first in Africa to do so at undergraduate level. Before we go any further, I'd just like to remind everyone to keep your mics muted at all times if you're not speaking, and you're more than welcome to drop questions in the chat box as we proceed, and we shall make note of them. And to the speakers, please try to keep time as much as possible. I would now like to hand over to Professor Otokgetho Totolo for a welcoming address. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Taboka, distinguished guests, Your Excellency Mayor Laurent Bo, Ambassador of France to Botswana, and Your Excellency Mayor Margaret Halbert-Boot, Ambassador of Germany to Botswana, our esteemed speakers, dynamic industry professionals, dear parents, amazing staff, and our esteemed treasured BUST alumni and students. A pleasant morning and warm welcome to today's virtual event, where we will engage in a discussion about the future of renewable energy, innovation, and entrepreneurship in Botswana. As part of its contribution to help stimulate the transition to a sustainable energy economy, BUST Center for Entrepreneurship, in collaboration with the Sustainable Energy Research Group, has organized this webinar to bring together energy experts, professionals, and young minds to share insightful knowledge about the potential of renewable energy and other low carbon technologies in Botswana, and to present entrepreneurial opportunities that shine light on where jobs can be created in the renewable energy sector. This is aligned to our strategic goal of academic excellence and engagement for development. As part of its integrated resource plan launched in December 2020, Botswana plans to integrate renewable energy into its energy mix. Under the Paris Climate Agreement National Determined Contribution, the country is committed to reduce 15% in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030, with the energy sector having a higher contribution. At BUST, we acknowledge that achievement of these goals not only requires a supportive regulatory system, but the participation and development of key players to implement projects towards the realization of these goals. To help the country achieve these goals means that the university must focus its efforts to support its students and alumni by giving them a platform to showcase their efforts in the energy space. It gives me great pleasure to be present here today to shine a light to those who continue to raise the BIOS flag high as they innovatively solve problems to existing social challenges. As a science, engineering, and technology university, it is imperative that we groom students who have the skills and competencies employers look for. But we must also ensure that we equip our students with the skills that will empower them to become job creators. This is evidenced by the vast curricula that we offer to ensure that our students are equipped with the right knowledge and skills to pave their way through life after graduation. As BIOST, we are aware of today's challenges, and we have aligned ourselves with the Botswana's National Entrepreneurship Policy of 2019 that promotes a culture of entrepreneurship across all levels of the education system. We firmly believe that innovation and entrepreneurship can play a significant role in diversifying and improving the country's economy. And BIOST perceives herself as a key player in the country's innovation and entrepreneurship environment. That is why we will continue to ensure that our graduates get the relevant training they require to emerge as agents of change in whichever fields they choose. We understand that access to such knowledge and awareness is very important in the world we live in today. At BIOST, we value creativity. We don't just look at the way things have always been. We applaud those who find gaps between the tight spaces, who question and think beyond the box to no limits. As I speak before you this morning, I'm happy and proud to say, indeed, we are making progress, as demonstrated by our students and alumni who are doing great in the energy and entrepreneurial space. The likes of the Barb World, BioWorld, Women in Energy. I particularly admire the theme, BIOS students and alumni shaping a sustainable society, because it goes to the very heart of what our students are doing to achieve sustainability and economic development of the country. As a university, we recognize that our work must be relevant, impactful, and address the challenges we are facing today. We must bridge the gap between academia, industry, and society. And that is why we have invited the players from industry and other crucial stakeholders from the community, including entrepreneurs, experts, and those aspiring to play a key role in the industry to be part of this conversation. We hope and believe that this will further mobilize entrepreneurship in the energy space, because it is through such active conversations and learning platforms that ideas can be born and explored. As we grow in this effort, we hope to inspire entrepreneurial spirit by sharing more success stories. Having said all that, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to this webinar, and I thank you. Hula.
Thank you very much, Professor, for that welcoming address. Kasetswana would say, so please be welcome, please be free to participate. And now I would like to hand over to Her Excellency Mayor Laurence Boo, the Ambassador of France to Botswana, for keynote remarks on how we can drive change. The floor is yours.
Good morning, Dumelang Bahait. So can you hear me well?
Ma'am, we can hear you very well.
Thank you so much. Thank you for giving me the honor to open this webinar about the future of renewable energy, innovation, and entrepreneurship in Botswana. I would like to thank the Botswana International University of Science and Technology and the Center for Entrepreneurship and the Sustainable Energy Research Group for giving me the great honor to open this session. And I would also like to thank Professor Totolo, Vice Chancellor of the BUST, and Dr. Tobias Bader, Head of Sustainable Energy Research Group, for convening this event. As you said, in 2015, based on the evidence of growing carbon emissions and its consequences on climate and population worldwide, the Paris Agreement, which is a legally binding international treaty on climate change, and I insist on that, legally binding international treaty on climate change, has been signed by 191 countries. Its goal, as you all know, is to limit global warming below 2 degrees compared to pre-industrial levels and to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. It will require efforts from all the members and at all levels, government levels, companies, or individual level, to transform our economies into sustainable ones and ensure the more balanced development in harmony with our environment. Now, how can we drive this change? Transforming our energy sector by the promotion of green and innovative technologies is definitely one of the keys to tackle climate change and increase our resilience to mitigate its effects on our societies. As you may know, the European Union is aiming to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions by 55% by 2030 and to reach carbon neutrality by 2050. To achieve these goals, the EU member states agreed on a Green New Deal. This action plan will help decarbonizing the energy sector, increase energy efficiency, boost green technologies, change mobility, and promote a circular economy. And just for an example, as far as my country, France, is concerned, we have already a large share of carbon-free electricity, but we are moving forward with a new climate and resilience bill, which is the result of the work of the Citizens' Climate Convention that aims to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 40% in 2030. And this innovative law will change the way we eat, we build, we move, we consume to forge a new sustainable development. And I would like to add and to underline that France, the EU, and all the member states, EU member states, are committed to help developing countries to build their resilience capacities to climate change. Now, Botswana is on the front line of climate change challenges. The country has faced long drought periods with increased temperature and reduced rainfalls in recent decades. And despite some short rainy events like this past summer, studies have predicted reduction in water availability and crop yields in the future. And furthermore, the COVID-19 pandemic has had a very strong impact on the dynamic economic growth of the country based on natural and wildlife resources, thus increasing unemployment and inequalities. But despite these difficult conditions, we strongly believe that this country has all the qualities and capacities to transform itself into a sustainable and successful innovation-led economy. And one of the driving change is investing in renewable energy. And this is what the Botswana authorities are actually doing. Botswana has committed to reduce 15% of these greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. And the government of Botswana is targeting a 50% renewable energy contribution to its mix by 2036. As His Excellency President Masisi explained, energy and ecological transitions are part of a bigger plan to lead Botswana into the fourth industrial revolution, where innovation and entrepreneurship will be the opportunities for youth to create sustainable jobs. With its huge solar and wind resource potential and its central location and well interconnected location in the region, It's a land-linked country, as Honorable Minister Kwape once called it. Botswana could become a renewable energy hub for Southern Africa, creating a carbon-neutral friendly environment for investors, driving skilled jobs and revenue for the country, as well as rural development. And myself, being the representative of a country which is implementing a feminist diplomacy, I am indeed very pleased to see that young women in energy, are ready to contribute to this success story. So we strongly believe in Botswana future. And again, thank you so much for organizing this webinar, which I think will be very, very important to pave the way for the future. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you again to Vice Chancellor Totolo and to Dr. Tobias Bader. And I wish you all a very successful and innovative webinar. Pula.
Pula. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for that keynote address and the reminder that climate change and the energy revolution is we are all liable to how the energy revolution will be going. I would now like to hand over to Mr. Jill Bew, an energy and climate change expert with over 25 years of international experience, cross-cutting over 4 continents, to give us a talk on how climate change can and will revolutionize the electricity market.
Thank you very much, and good morning to all. So definitely, I'm going to make some presentation on how carbon emissions are impacting, climate change, and some good news on the renewable energy revolution, which is currently happening in the electricity market. So I wanted to start this presentation with, these 2 images. The first one on the left, it's in order to show that we are all involved in carbon-intensive activities through what we eat, through the way we move, through what we consume, even the computer that we are using. Can you, sorry?
Please share your screen.
I'm sorry. I will try to share my screen. Okay. I thought it was in. Okay. So this is, exactly what I said. So on the left image, it's exactly, all the activities that we are doing have an impact on the carbon emissions, because it will require some electricity, it will require some energy in the process, and we are all involved into it. And on the right side, I quite like this image because we have had an experience with the COVID, and we are still within this experience where, something unpredicted came very quickly and has made a huge disturbance to our life, to, our health, and we will have to bear the consequences. So we were not ready because it came very quickly. We will not be able to say the same for climate change because we know already for the last 20 years, 30 years nearly, that it's happening, but it's very slow to see the impact. But definitely we need to get ready, and we need to learn in some way from the COVID to not repeat and to make sure that we will address climate change in time. So it means now. So everyone knows that the global effect, the greenhouse gases are capturing, part of the energy, the infrared energy emitted back by the Earth, and some of these energies stays within, the atmosphere and the surface of the Earth. What is really important to understand is that the main greenhouse gases like CO2, carbon dioxide, and methane, CH4, given their chemical and atomic structure and composition, in fact, are extremely stable and stay a very, very long time in the atmosphere. So when we're talking about carbon dioxide, it stays in the atmosphere for more than 500 years. And methane stays in the atmosphere above our heads for more than 100 years. And on the right, what you see is the concentration of those gases in the atmosphere. And this is through measurement that have been made. And what we see is that there is a strong increase since the 19th century, and more or less that corresponds to the starts of the Industrial Revolution. And if you look, for example, at carbon dioxide, it was nearly stable in the 280 particles per million. And since 1900, it has risen. And today in 2020, we are in 420. So it means we are somewhere here in the graph, outside on the graph. And so on this slide here, on this graph, on the top left graph, what you see is the annual carbon emission. So it's not accumulated, it's an annual carbon emission. So in the 1900s, what you can see is that we were not producing very much, we were not emitting a lot of carbon emissions. It was just the start of the revolution in the Industrial Revolution with mainly coal. And then after the Second World War, then it started to pick up and pick up. So it means that today, in the last 60 years, we have added into the atmosphere nearly as much carbon emission as over the previous 200 years. And in fact, at the rate of today, so today we are emitting, so all the countries together are emitting about 37 gigatons of CO2. So it means that if we were to continue with just that trend, we would add an additional 1,000 gigatons in 27 years. And and in fact, we need to stop and we need to reduce that. If not, there's going to be an increase of the carbon concentration and the temperature. And what has been seen is that we know the first IPCC report was from the 1990, the first World Summit was from 92. And then, there has been a lot of different conferences on climate change. There was the digital revolution, and what we see is that the concentration has not stopped. And, the carbon concentration is still increasing, even after the Paris Agreement. So in fact, nothing has changed because we are still dumping a huge quantity of carbon emissions into the atmosphere. And the consequences of that is that today, all the scientists that are working within the IPCC, so the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, international organization on the climate change, is that whatever we do today, all the models agree and all the scenarios agree that by 2040, we will reach 2 degrees. Today, we are probably in 1.2, 1.3, but by 2040, we will reach 2 degrees. And depending on how we are going to tackle and how we are going to either reduce and how fast we are going to be able to reduce, maybe we will, stay within a 2 degrees temperature increase by the end of this century. But, and if we don't do anything, the temperature is going to increase up to, 5, 6, 7 degrees. And if really we wanted to stay, by 1.2, 1.3, in that case, it would mean that we would nearly have to switch off everything today in order to reduce to 0 carbon emissions. So this temperature increase, as a consequences, will be translated in an increase of the temperature over the surface of the Earth, and it's more important on the surface of the landmass. So that means that most of the countries, and especially the poles, will see an increase between 2 degrees to probably up to 4, 5, 6 degrees, depending on how fast we tackle carbon emissions. And also it will have an impact on the rainfall patterns and, with the change on the sea levels and everything. So, and what we can see is that whatever the case is, in Southern Africa, it's going to be drier. So what we can expect for Botswana in particular case is a drier and hotter climate. So we will need to do something, because what we know today is that fossil fuels are the main contributor of carbon emissions, about 85%, within agriculture, within energy generation, within transport, within even our day-to-day life, and even for water. Sometimes for desalination, you need a lot of water, you need a lot of energy. So the way the world will have to tackle this is to become a less carbon-intensive economy, and especially in electricity generation, because this is the easiest probably to tackle today, because for transportation, we need to have quite insane, it's going to take a little bit more time. And so when you see, at the beginning, the carbon emissions they started in Europe, then they shifted to the US, and very recently they started to shift to Asia. And so now if you look at what's happening in Asia with all the coal power plants which have been installed, the generation or the emission of carbon emission have increased quite a lot. And here you can see, for example, the increase of emissions of China. And this is because they have installed massive amounts of coal power station in order to drive their development. The good thing is that most of the countries have started to realize that they need to tackle that, and they are committed, like European Union, like France, like Germany, even China have committed to become carbon neutral. So they are going to reduce their carbon intensity in the coming years. So. But it means that we need to make decisions today to have an impact only in 20 to 30 years from now. The good news is that today, thanks to a lot of countries, Germany was probably at the beginning of this, then China has committed a lot of money, and many countries now are also in this. There is a new revolution, the renewable energy revolution in the electricity market, because we know that today it has been proven wind and solar energy as the cheapest way of producing electricity, obviously including hydro, but hydro sometimes has been already quite well developed. And thanks to the improvement in technology, they are much more grid compatible, so they are much more friendly with the grid, and even now with the new inverters which are grid forming, they can help, in fact, the grid in its stabilities. The renewable energy also have no carbon emissions or liabilities and very little water requirement for their operation. And so because of that, they can commit to flat tariff over their long period of time with no fuel cost risk and no carbon emission risk. And what is important also to understand is that there is now another, revolution, which is the energy storage. Because so far, the main arguments from the coal and the different fossil fuel players were to say that renewable energy were intermittent. But with the new, price competitive energy storage, like batteries in Australia, large-scale batteries, there are now more than 300 megawatts of large-scale batteries in Australia for the last 2 years, and they have shown that it works and it's reducing, the tariff of electricity. But they are becoming, it's a game changer, and they are replacing, in fact, the peaking power plants, because they can become much smarter. And
sorry
in fact,
to cut you short here, but we are running out of time, so please run through the rest of your
I'm nearly done. So here, definitely the load is fluctuating, the generation is fluctuating, and in fact, the energy storage are going to absorb some of the energy when it's not, needed, when it's not consumed, and they will release it when it's needed by the consumer. And in fact, it's going to trigger quite a big change in for the electricity regulatory authorities and the grid operator to not only make sure that there is a good dispatch of the electricity, but also to make sure that it will lower the cost and lower the carbon contents, because there is a carbon tax looming. And if you add price of carbon on the price of electricity, then you will see that definitely renewable energy and battery storage and energy storage are going to become the the way to go. And as example, and I'm nearly finishing on that, as example, Australia is already showing the way. It's already happening over there. And you see, this is the 7 days of the renewable, the main grid energy mixed over the last 7 days in Australia. And you can see that regularly, now Australia is reaching nearly 50% of renewable energy penetration in its electricity mixed. And this is only with 300 megawatts of batteries, with a lot of wind and solar and some hydro. And today, Australia has already 7,000 of megawatts of energy storage in place, which means that they could nearly remove all the coal generation, which is in black and brown in the future. And what we can see is that emissions have started to plateau since this renewable energy revolution. And you can see also the trend of the price. The price of electricity, the wholesale price of electricity now is going down. So I think with this renewable energy revolution and the urgency of impact of the climate change, Botswana has a very great opportunity to jump into renewable and to become a source of revenue and jobs for Botswana. But decisions are to be made now. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm leaving to the next one.
Thank you very much, Theo, for such a beautiful presentation and painting a vivid picture of why we need to re-evolutionize the energy sector and why climate change is not just a first world problem, but a global problem. And Botswana will be heavily affected if we remain on the course that we are on. I would now like to give the floor to Ms. Karen Gifford, the Secretary of the Solar Industry Association Botswana, on why we need more renewable energy in Botswana. Karen?
Thanks, Teboka. Good morning, everyone. My name is Karen Gifford, as Teboka introduced. I'll just share my presentation now. I'm going to speak a little bit more on Botswana, as Gilles presented very well the overview of climate change. So I'm going to focus a little bit more on Botswana now. So why do we need, Why do we need more renewables in Botswana? Well, the simple reasons. As spoken about earlier, we signed the Paris Agreement in 2016 to reduce greenhouse gases by 2030 by 15%. Within this is a major contribution of carbon emissions. And as we can see here, the total emissions contributed by energy is the highest within the country. Estimated or calculated at 4 megatons of carbon emissions from the electricity sector and heat generation sector. Between coal and oil, it's about a 60% and 40% split. So we can see here that Botswana has a large contribution of coal within their generation, shown in this graph. Installed capacity for electricity generation in Botswana, there's a total of 895 megawatts, of which 735 megawatts is coal, split between Morapuli B and Morapuli A. Morapuli B being 600 megawatts and Morapuli A 130. The 160 megawatt of diesel is installed at Francistown and Arapa between 70 megawatts and 90 megawatts. With the installed capacity, current operating capacity is only at 390 megawatts. And that's where we can see the deficit within the country. Our current demand is approximately 610 megawatts. but we can see that there is a deficit where we have imported electricity. This is a graph taken from BPC, but reports have recently come out which state that up to 50% of electricity required or demand was imported at a cost of 2.2 billion pula to the country in 2020. So this is of great concern, and there is huge potential to bring renewable energy into the mix. Currently installed is less than 10 megawatts of photovoltaic energy, and this makes up less than 1% of the RE mix, of the electricity mix. Our generation within 2020 was 3,700 gigawatt hours. The also obvious reason, or probably the most obvious reason, is our abundance of sunshine. We have 3,200 hours of sunshine annually in Botswana, of which, as I've just discussed, is underutilized. Shown in this graph here is the direct normal irradiation and the three integration spots which would be most suitable to the transmission lines within the country. So the direct normal irradiation was taken over this period of time, and annually within these areas, you can see, particularly within the Suapan area, you can see that there's high irradiation there, between 2,500 and 2,650 kilowatt hours per meter squared generated annually, or potentially generated annually. Wind speeds have also been recorded. It was initially thought that there was no wind resource within Botswana, but recent studies have shown that there could be potential for wind, which is quite interesting because it would complement solar quite nicely with our morning and evening peaks, because our morning peaks are between 6 and 7 a.m. and 8 and 9 p.m. within the nighttime. And obviously the sun doesn't shine in the nighttime. So it's quite complementary. And here it shows that there's between, potentially 6.5 and 7 meters per second wind speeds within these areas. Again, these areas have been highlighted where integration would be best suited with the transmission lines, with the grid infrastructure that's available within Botswana. So also to talk a little bit about the potential markets, there are vast areas of land within Botswana and potential markets. So there's the large scale generation. Recently, the IRP was launched in Botswana, and this is inclusive of large scale generation. It's the generation or capacity mix plan for Botswana between 2017 and 2020 and 2040, so the 20-year plan. But here you can see the generation capacity graph between 2017 and 2040, which then includes the modeling for the inclusion of the renewable energy. So this would include approximately 300 megawatts, a minimum of 300 megawatts of solar PV. This could go up to 900 megawatts of PV, depending on the shift with Botswana and also the utilization of battery storage. There's a plan for 200 megawatts of CSP, which is planned procurement for 2021. So this is one of our projects that will be going ahead shortly, hopefully. 135 megawatts is also being procured currently within this IRP plan, and they're going through the tender processes. Included in that IRP is also 50 megawatts of wind and 50 megawatts of battery storage. There's also the access to electricity. Because of our vast lands in Botswana and our low population density, grid infrastructure doesn't reach all areas. And so there's still a major issue, particularly in rural areas with access to electricity. And you can see here that only 27.9% of the population actually has access. So here there's a market for small scale solar to be utilized on a household level or mini grids, for instance. There's also our GDP is made up of about 30% contribution by our diamond industry, which is a major contributor. And so it's of great concern to the diamond industry that they remain with a large foothold in the market. And now what we're seeing is the next generation is actually moving slightly away from those real diamonds because they're seeing them as large contributors to global warming and climate change issues. So it is, an area that Botswana needs to focus on, and it is within their strategy to green diamonds. Botswana, with the two largest mines, Dronning and Arapa, has targets for carbon neutrality by 2036. There's also the vast borehole market. So we know that water is an issue to Botswana. It's a scarce resource. And so you can see all these little dots on the map at the bottom left are actually boreholes that have been drilled in Botswana. And so there's potential to install and replace diesel generators, which are mainly used for pumping now, to replace it with solar borehole pumps. We also know about our Botswana tourism industry. So this is a map shown here of all of the lodges within the Delta, a large portion of which have already been converted to solar. It's estimated there's about 2 megawatts installed solar PV within the Delta, but still a number of these lodges do use diesel or diesel as backup. So there's potential market within there to expand, especially with the ecotourism and the recovery from COVID, to actually bring the market back and promote that ecotourism again. Then there's the CNI, the commercial and industrial sector. Here you can see this is an actual photo of Airport Junction, which has been one of the first rooftop installations to feed into the grid. It's a 2 megawatt PV installation, and it's
Sorry
part
to
of the
disturb you,
rooftop.
Karen, but please look at the time. Okay.
Okay, sorry. Okay, just the last market is a household residential market as well. Okay, I'm going to try to move through these quickly, but they're quite interesting actually. So Botswana has been attempting to move into the renewable energy space, particularly with solar, since the 1980s. And this transition, for whatever reason, hasn't seemed to happen. But because of the impact of COVID-19 and greening and recovery, Botswana is planning to move from a mineral-led public sector to an export-led private sector, which also means that within the greening recovery, they're hoping that the private sector will drive the industry a little bit more. So you can see here from 2018, there was a tender for the 35 megawatts that I earlier spoke about. That's under tender at the moment, and the 100 megawatt tender that has been out for the PV, which will be one of the first IPPs in the country to connect to the grid on a large scale anyway. So greening the recovery, this is the COVID recovery plan, and this is the aspect which speaks to us. So this was done in June 2020. A few more of the very interesting aspects that have been that affect our renewable energy sector currently is that BERA had the renewable the Botswana Energy Regulator, had a midterm review last year, and they're currently under restructure to move away from the single buyer utility which exists currently with BPC and more towards the IPP integration, which means there'll be more space for the renewable energy sector to come in on a large scale. Then also the launch of the Rooftop Solar Program. This is the pilot project for 10 megawatts, which is being fed into the grid, the first in the country, and that happened in November 2020. It was quite big in our sector. There was also the launch of the Integrated Resource Plan, which I spoke about a little bit earlier, and that was in December 2020, which was quite major because the large contribution of renewable energy included in there. There's also been a draft climate change response, which includes carbon taxes and carbon trading within that policy, which is still in draft form. Another major aspect was the adoption of the National Energy Policy, which includes pillars of renewable energy. And this happened recently in 2021. We had initially, the energy sector had been operating without an energy policy since 2005. So it was quite a momentous moment for our sector. So this is just a little bit on the acceleration of renewable energy and climate change response in Botswana that is happening currently. The next steps, we need a unified approach within Botswana. We still find that everyone's doing in isolation, but there's strength in numbers. And so this is the time COVID-19 recovery has presented an opportunity with the greening recovery, and we should utilize that. So all of these sectors should come together and, approach climate change with one voice. Thank you. These are my contact details. Thanks, Taboka. If anyone has any questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Karen. I'd just like to thank you for painting such a clear picture of what's happening on the ground. And yeah, just to remind all the speakers to try keep to the allocated time. Now we will be having some presentations and discussions on what's currently the alumni currently involved in. Thank you, Tomo.
Sorry. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tomo, and I am a BU's graduate, class of 2018. And I am also a co-founder and director at Women in Energy. I was actually in the first group to graduate from the Botswana International Botswana International University of Science and Technology from the Faculty of Engineering. So who is Women in Energy? WINE. So we are a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to accelerate women participation within the energy sector. And how we plan on doing that is by raising and promoting public awareness about the added values of having more women participate within the energy sector. And also we hope to create a networking platform for women who want to partake or take an active role within the energy space with other energy professionals. And we also hope to educate and train young women through programs and mentorship programs in hopes of also inspiring the young women, to go into fields that are deemed male dominated. And with that being said, we hope to mobilize entrepreneurship in the energy space, especially with women, to make sure that they take an active role in terms of in the energy space at all levels. So why Women in Energy? Women in Energy was formed by 8 young women, all graduates of BUs, all graduated from energy engineering. And the reason why we started Women in Energy is because of the experiences as well as the observations that we had when during our studies as well as after graduation. And we realized that women are underrepresented in the energy sector. And this obviously is due to a number of reasons, like cultural and social norms, which are also one of the fundamental attributes that contribute to the decisions that we make, as well as prevailing views of the abilities of women, what we are capable or not capable of doing. And also we see this just from our class. I'll just make a reference, for example, 7 out of 24 women were enrolled in the energy engineering class. This just comes to show that women, when it comes to engineering or tech fields, they're not really, they don't really go or necessarily are attracted or go the tech way. And obviously it comes down to gender roles, and as well as the lack of access to career information and relevant networks. We see that they shape also hiring practices within the energy sector and also contribute to the level of entry in terms of internships and apprenticeship in the energy sector, and as well as seeing that women are basically women are faced with the most burden of, having families as well as work. So this has been the attributing factor to the slow professional growth within the energy sector. And at Women in Energy, our principle is to build solutions and also build solutions to basically problems or social problems that we are facing currently, and also by making sure that no one is left behind and including everyone. And also we hope to just have create that networking platforms to be able to have people come together and form consortiums, as well as start entrepreneurship journeys. And we hope to also empower the young women as well as youth and children. So WINE has really partaken in different activities in the past to also push our mandate to increase the participation of women in the energy sector. And some of the activities that we have partaken in or we have done is the Big Sister Drive, which was an initiative that was created to mentor 50 young women and equip them with interpersonal skills to make sure that when they go out there, they have the confidence to sell themselves as well as go after what they want. And we also had a similar activity with collaborating with Stepping Stones, which also really was just to share the vast opportunities out there for women and how we can also position, how young women can position themselves to go after those opportunities. And our women have also gone through different trainings, which included the solar PV project development training, as well as the Women in African Power training program, which also equipped some of these young women with leadership skills. And as well as we've had the opportunity to speak on different platforms, such as the United Nations Youth Climate Change Summit. We had some of our women go there, one woman go there to sort of like represent us and see how women can also play a part and how it is important also that we include gender equality in pursuit of other sustainable development goals. And as well as speaking platforms such as the Power and Electricity World Africa, as well as another young woman went on to China to also take part in an innovation lab in terms of like coming together, everyone, different people from everywhere globally coming together to sort of like see how and come up with innovative solutions to solve existing social issues. Well, as Women in Energy, where do we see ourselves? we want to, go into implementing energy projects, especially along elevating energy poverty, especially targeting disadvantaged settlements, and seeing how we can work together to, alleviate the energy poverty, as we know that women are really the main users of energy, but yet also they're very affected by the energy poverty. And also we hope to assist local and international energy companies with CSR projects, mostly by applying a gender perspective within these projects and making sure that they are gender sensitive. And as well as we realize that there isn't a lot in terms of data with the gender and the participation of women in male-dominated industries, how many women are in the energy sector and at what level. And this is some of the data that is needed also to drive change, as well as to assist decision making. And obviously we hope to work with companies as well in projects, energy projects, to help with gender mainstreaming and consultation and the likes. And also we call for support, we call for partnerships and networking, especially from huge entities, whether small or big or small. We hope to work with them, obviously, with energy projects in the future. And we also will ask help in terms of skill development and transfer. We want to work with both skilled and unskilled women, and also see how we can help them advance within the energy sector and how we can mobilize entrepreneurship in that aspect. And obviously project funding, there are a few projects that we as women in energy would like to do, and partnering with different organizations would help us in implementing some of these projects. And that is all, but lastly, I'd just like to advise or just share words of inspiration to our current students at BUs. I'd just like to say, be courageous in everything that you do. Right now really is the right time to start whatever you want to start. And also just know that, and also put yourself out there, network, and just don't place yourself in a line, and go out there, do something that has really nothing to do with science, engineering, because it really does help a lot. It opens your mind, and also it opens your mind to spot opportunities and gaps, and see how also you could bring your engineering knowledge to solve these issues. And yeah, and also just be humble and be willing to learn. Education never ends. And with that being said, thank you, Babagar, for giving me this platform. I guess we'll go on to the next presenter. Thank you.
Thank you, Toma, for your presentation. I can see there are already a few questions here. I'd just like to say that we'll go into a Q&A session after all the alumni have given the short presentations. So, Ubile, the floor is yours.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ubile Marawane. I come from a company called Botswana. I finished from the youth in the year 2017. We are the founding students at the university, and I was studying energy engineering. So today I'll be giving you a presentation on the company that I founded after I finished school, which is Botswana. Next slide. Can you go to the next slide, please? Yes. Botswana, like I've been saying, is an energy company that was founded to provide energy solutions and services to Botswana, especially in rural areas where company, just our services in this company. And then one of the products that we have been spreading out or rolling out in the country or in the market is the production of charcoal made from organic waste. And then our plant or our manufacturing our plant is located in Kakuto, that is in Botswana. The company is currently employing all permanent employees, and the other ones that are in temporary employees that comes when they. And then our services are offered under 4 divisions. And today I will only be speaking to the thermal division, which deals with the production of our charcoal. And let me go to the next slide. Yeah. One will ask that charcoal is it's not. How is charcoal a clean energy? How is charcoal regarded as clean? Because charcoal is when the production is include the burning and the emissions. I would like to clarify that by saying that our charcoal is made in a way that is sustainable, clean, and friendly to the environment. We use feedstock that is organic waste. That is the vegetation that is cut along road reserves, along power lines, and homes in plowing fields. That is normally taken to the landfill or being burned along the roads or in the home. And we all understand that decomposing biomass, we end up producing a dangerous gas being methane, which has a lot of greenhouse potential. So for us, we are basically collecting that waste and then use carbonizing it to produce carbonizing it to produce charcoal. We do that in our in a machinery or in a furnace, a carbonizing furnace, state-of-the-art machinery, I must say, that was imported and bought from China. This machinery or this carbonization furnace is emission technology. So emissions that are coming from carbonizing biomass are not allowed to go to the environment, but they are captured and then reused. As you can see below there, there is a flame that are coming from the flue gases. So this material can be able to circulate flue gases and convert them to basically produce charcoal. Temperatures can go up to 400 degrees. That is where our carbonization. So like I said, the raw materials normally we use vegetation, cow dung to basically reduce the amount of waste that is either burned or taken to the landfill. This is more of your waste to energy technology. So from the production process itself, we'll have our charcoal packaged and ready for market. And one of the byproducts that we have in our factory or in our charcoal production process is wood vinegar and wood tar. We are currently in talks with the Botswana Bureau of Standards and Minister of Agriculture to see how they can use this wood vinegar and tar, because it can be used to make pesticide. So in this project or in this business of ours, we are solving a couple of our problems that are facing us as a country, that are facing us as a Southern African region. One of the most important challenge that we are facing, we are trying to solve is energy shortage. You know that Botswana is still facing a challenge of energy shortage, especially in rural areas where women and children have to walk long distances in search of firewood. So we are saying, due to climate change and global warming, let us reduce deforestation. But people in rural areas are depending on firewood to prepare meals for their family. So we are saying we are giving you an alternative to firewood so that you can continue to meet your energy demand, but without causing further harm to the environment. Also, we are addressing issue of poor waste management. Botswana is known of poor waste management because, like I said, some of the vegetation that is brought from gardens, homes along the roads is burned there, and we all know the dangers of burning this type of material. The other thing that you are solving as a company a young company founded by young people, is unemployment, the rate of unemployment that we have in Botswana. So with this project, we are kind of, like I said, we already employed 12 permanent workers, of which 90% of them are young people, young engineers, young scientists that were basically employed in this company. So there are a couple of challenges or issues that you are trying to solve in this project. So like I said, one of the byproducts that we have there is wood vinegar, and it can also be used to make pesticide that can help us produce enough food in terms of the agricultural sector. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yes. Like I said, our product, which is charcoal and briquette, is already in the market. We have done all the necessary, processes that need to be undertaken. Our product has been tested by, we conducted a test verified by Botswana Bureau of Standards, given a license by Department of Environmental Affairs, and it's now in the market. It can be found in Gaborone, mostly in Total, Gaborone, TOS, same price, the Square Martin, Gaborone, and Engine. So this product, it is there to basically, address the issue of energy shortage. It is worth saying that 99% of charcoal that we have in Botswana is actually imported either from South Africa or Namibia. So we are here, young companies, saying that we can do this locally. This is the result that we have to create employment here locally. So we are actually the first company to commercialize this. I understand there are two organizations, that is the Ngamilan Trust and another community trust in the Hukwinzi area that are doing charcoal. But we are the first private company, not an organization, to do it. And we also have other services at the company. But like I said, we have different divisions in the company. We have we are also providing a solar water pumping system, the biogas system. As you can see that digesters. We build, design, and do the biogas system to provide energy, especially for rural areas, and also even in towns, lodges, hotels are already using our system. And we also provide solutions like solar water heating and anything that needs to deal with renewable energy. At the moment, we are engaged with the solar rooftop program that we are basically helping people with design for their residentials, their homes, their businesses, in terms of solar and other renewable energy services. But it is worth stating that like I said, I started this company immediately when I finished school at BUS, and there was always challenges like a lack of incentives, like you're just a student, finished your studies, no money, but you have an idea, and then you believe on it, looking at the challenges that we're facing in the country. So there's always problem of lack of incentives and standards. We went through a hard time when it comes to now, testing our product, and because at the moment there's no standard, there's no local standard existing on charcoal and briquette. No standard at all. We ended up buying standard from South Africa. And then, of course, like I said, there's also always issues of financial limitation. At the moment, there's a lot of demand. People are calling every day, asking for our charcoal, but we find ourselves, unable to keep up with the demand because of limited resources. Then another one is always the expensive rentals and the negative attitude towards renewable energy. And you always hear people saying that, just the attitude towards RETs. Like one will say, we encounter that a lot. Food that is cooked with firewood tastes better than food that can be cooked from charcoal. Those are negative attitudes and traditional beliefs in rural areas that we encounter every day. And then we address that by basically, raising awareness, but we end up spending resources in education and then also in the production process. Can we go to the next and last slide? Yes. But before I conclude, I'd like to say that just a word of advice to the students and graduates, that one thing that we have to know is that youth mandate was to produce employment-ready graduates. But that was not only the mandate. Another mandate was to produce graduates that are able to use scientific and engineering methodologies that they've learned in school, basically create employment for others, basically create industry that will change the economical landscape of this country. So that is our responsibility. The government of Botswana spends billions of money in educating us. So we shouldn't be sitting home saying that there is no employment. The government is not, employing us, is not creating employment for us. But we are learned now. And there are challenges that are facing our community. It's our responsibility to stand up and solve them for our people, solve them for our parents, solve them for ourselves, and solve them for this country. So that is our contact. We can be contacted as sales at BW or those mobiles. We also have a website, Facebook page, and we will always be, willing to have people who can basically assist us here and there in our business. By that, I would like to end here because of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ubile, for such a beautiful presentation. I'd just like to remind all speakers to please be cognizant of time. We are already behind time. So yeah, with that, Okhaofi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Taboka. Good day, everyone. My name is Okhaofi Whitney Sitlurile. I am first and foremost a BUST alumni. I graduated from BUST as a founding student in 2018, but officially finished our studies in 2017. I'm here today as the operations manager at the Baobab. Next slide, please, Tomo. So what we do at the Baobab is we are local LED lighting manufacturers. We are based in Silibe Pikwe. That decision was taken off the backdrop of the decision by our government to shut down BCL. So we moved there because I think a lot of our staff or our team is were born and bred in Pikwe. So it really is something that's very close to our heart, and hence we took that decision to move to Pikwe. We are part of the economic diversification drive and registered under the Ministry of Trade under that platform. And most importantly, we're 100% citizen owned and run company. We're all youth and we're all citizens trying to bring this company to light. Next slide, please, Tomo. Why LEDs? Basically, this initiative came at the backdrop of the 2015-2016. We used to have a lot of power cuts due to the fact that there wasn't enough power being generated, and people were not really willing to share at that point in time in terms of the power. So our CEO established this company in 2017, yes, and we then joined him in 2018 to begin the operations of the company. So basically LEDs, I think a lot of people here will know, is that they are revolutionizing the lighting industry in terms of the energy saving potential and their long lasting ability, and the fact that they don't contribute towards pollution. So it is something that the rest of the world is moving towards, and it would be a great landmark or feature to say that Botswana is the LED hub of Southern Africa or Africa at some point in time when we reach that level, which is what we are working towards. Just as well, LEDs are also compatible with renewable energy. Hence, I think we're invited to this platform today, is that when you talk about LED, you're talking about renewables. They're very compatible. And in terms of the Botswana's NDCs towards the 15% reduction in terms of our GHG emissions, LED is an immediate solution because it is something, it's a plug and go solution and reduces your energy consumption up to 90% depending on the type of lights in which you're using. Next slide, please, Tomo. As a company, I would like to state that these are basically the core values that we surround ourselves with, or what we are trying to achieve as a local youth-based company. And with that, I think I'll go more into that when I discuss our journey, because our journey will speak to basically encompass all these points into one. Next slide, please, Tomo. So our journey, I will take you through our company as a whole, where we've been, where we've come from. So it will address issues such as the challenges for us to get to where we are today and what we've been through. Like I said, we established a company in 2018. Then it was the three of us. It was another gentleman who was also an abused alumni. It was Atang and I and our CEO, Mr. Jacob. So we had established a company and we had, I think, 7 members of staff at the factory at the time. So because we didn't have a market yet, we didn't have any store in hand, we had literally our bulbs in hand and no one to sell them to. We decided to start with door-by-door sales. We went from our friends to our family to anyone who would let us in our house, would get on your kitchen countertop and would put in those lights in your house and get you the experience of what is it that LEDs can do and what is that we can do as individuals to basically bring lighting to your home. Because at that point, we needed to survive, we needed to make money. And we had a team at the factory that was relying on us to figure out a way to pay their salaries. And in order to get a buck, we had to establish a plan. So our plan was, you know what, if the retail market is not ready for us yet, we're gonna go and knock on people's doors and go down neighborhoods and get people to buy our bulbs. So that is what we did. But in so doing, that was obviously not a sustainable initiative in the long run. We decided we need to figure out bigger clients because we need to pay 7 individual salaries at the factory and also survive ourselves. We went into corporate sales. I would like to applaud Boost for being one of our first uptakers of our product. We were very excited and they took us up under their wings and bought our products. And I'd like to say it actually is in use in a lot of the facilities in Boost. You'll find a lot of our lighting there as well. Our first corporate clients then followed Bitikanelo College, then followed Spedu and others. So in so doing, as we're pushing this as well, we're also parallel pushing retailers. Electronics is a very hard market, especially because people are very concerned about what is it you're bringing to the market. When we first began, the retailers were very hesitant to take on our product. Like I said, this is in 2018, we said with no retailers at all. So we were very hesitant to take up our product. So we had to, yes, ma'am.
Emma, please keep track of time so that we have time for a question and answer session.
Yes, I will do just that. So yes, let me just quickly go through it. And then we pushed for the retailers. Yes, we're pushing for retailers. So during this time, I think we made it through the door into Choppies, which has well over 94 stores countrywide. So today alone, Tumo, next slide, please. We sit in well over 209 stores nationwide. After Choppies, all of these other stores had been open up doors for us because we began to build trust, Builders Warehouse, ShopRite, Shield, Electrical, all these guys had to open their doors. So I can proudly today state that we sit in well over 209 stores nationwide. Again, with that being said, in order for growth aspects, we also decided on another avenue, which was projects, which is basically whereby we come in and introduce another aspect of our lighting in terms of large scale projects. Where we are now sitting is that we have done projects for our government in terms of the councils who are mandated towards maintaining roads and such and the like. If you look at the pictures on your right-hand corner, that is in Bubiva, where we've installed our street lighting solutions there. We're currently now working on a project with Boost as well to phase out the obsolete street lighting, to introduce solar street lighting into the university campus towards that initial sustainable development move to renewable energy. Next slide, please, Tomo. So this is just an appreciation of the factory. Next slide, Tomo. From the 3 that we were then, we're now sitting at 65 employees with offices in all 5 districts on all areas of the country. And we have 5 area managers which mandate these areas to take care of the stores and also garner business in these areas. We have grown significantly and are now penetrating the South African market. We're moving into the SADC region. We're doing pretty well in that regard as well. So we are really trying to push to grow the brand such that we are an internationally SADC recognized company in future. Next slide, Tomo. We also have another wing of ours, which is Lisedike Mpo, a light is a gift. It is a CSR initiative that is mandated towards giving back to boarding schools in in our country, because a lot of boarding schools in our country suffer from light deficiency problems due to degradation and lack of maintenance. So this is another key area of the campaign that we really take heart in. We recently handed over Lobatse back to the school. We did that project in collaboration with FNB, and it was a very exciting initiative towards bringing back or giving back to the people who are going to become the future leaders of tomorrow. Next slide, please. I was asked to give advice. So in the great words of Elon Musk, he has this saying where he says, I work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week and 365 days a year, yet some people can still attribute my success to luck. It is not luck, it's work. You have to persevere. You have to continually get up and keep moving. Greatness is a process. It will not happen overnight. As I stated with our journey that we started off as 3 people and 7 guys in the factory. Now we're sitting well over 65 employees countrywide in 209 stores, and we continue to push towards the SADC market. We continue to push that BUST, BUST alumni will one day join us as well in terms of our growth going forward. I would like to thank BUST for having us, and I would like to thank BUST for supporting us and the continual support through the years. And just guys, with everything that you do, continue to push, continue to persevere. It's not going to get easier with time. It gets harder. The bigger you are, the more problems you have. I'd like to say thank you, and I wish you all the best of luck, BUST students, and hope to be seeing you soon in the market. Thank you.
Thank you, Khalfi, for your wonderful presentation. Tomo and Dubile, thank you. I'd like to hand over to the floor for some questions. We'll limit them to 5 to 10 minutes because of time. So if there's any questions, I know there was a question from the German embassy.
Yeah, machen Sie uns mal angehen. Okay, right. The German embassy has a couple of questions. So first, my colleague Marcel will ask something, and after that, I have a question too. Marcel.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you so very much for the presentation. So really great to see these success stories. So yes, a few questions to the respective presenters, and one in general, what we would be interested in, especially as the startup business is a hard business, how you actually started this. So basically the question of the initial funding, if you could elaborate on this, maybe we can also just have 1 or 2 examples, not all 3 have to answer this. With regard to the second presenter, Mr. Moriwane, Biowat Botswana, I would be actually interested in your speaking about 12 employees at the moment, and I think 4 chains which are basically selling your product. So meaning, how do you intend to scale this up, expand your business? You say that there's no regulation on charcoal at the moment in Botswana. Is there, for example, in the region? And which obstacles do you face if you really want to scale this up? Because this sounds like a really viable solution. And with regard to the third presenter, the bulk world, that sounds amazing. And you are already scaling up and working in the region. What I didn't quite understand is basically the innovation from your side, LEDs. What sets your company apart with regard to other companies who also sell LEDs technologically? So maybe I didn't understand it correctly. Maybe you have mentioned it, but it would be great if you could elaborate a little bit on this. And thank you very much once again for the presentation. Now, I think the ambassador has also some questions.
Yes, very briefly. You know, I would like to go back to what the Vice Chancellor said in the beginning, and that is he wants to empower the students, improve the skills, and I think we saw some quite convincing examples like Ms. Ugaufi, Mr. Uwila, Ms. Tomo. You all have these skills, and I think apart from the skills, what you also need to be successful is like passion. And I think when you talk about women, I always thought women may have more passion than men. And that's why they can be more successful in some sort of business. And I think the bulk world is really a very good example, because Ms. Ugaufi, she really showed the passion that women can, display and be successful in business. Now, my question actually goes to WINE, which is a great acronym, the Women in Energy, and Ms. Tomo. You described very well what you want to do to inspire women to go into the energy sector. And again, I think Bulb World is a very good example for that. But can you give us more examples on successful women-led businesses? And what difference have women made so far? So I think, we're not talking about Bulb World now, because this is a good example we saw already. And I actually think that Ms. Ugaufi, they should go into mentoring sessions and pitching sessions with women in energy, because that's really a very good example on how to do things. But what difference do women make in this business? And what successful businesses can women in energy show at this moment in time? Thank you.
And it's up to you and the moderator who starts, exactly.
Maybe we can start with the questions from Marcel. I don't know if you really got those. Can maybe answer one of that, and then we'll Khalfi. And then we can go into the last question by the ambassador.
Yes, let me start to answering the question that was asked, that how do we intend to, like I said, currently in Botswana, Botswana Bureau of Standard doesn't have a standard that regulates charcoal. But we made a submission to them to adopt the standard from South Africa, because when we were doing our testing, we were using South African standard. So I think this before the end of this day, according to what they will be having a local standard, on charcoal and related products. So we are hopeful on that one. So like I said earlier, as a company, we started small. Even our carbonization is small. So we are looking forward to basically increasing the production, because we are currently producing 5 tons in a week, which is very low compared to the market demand. Because we are getting orders from all over the country, from South Africa and from Zimbabwe. We are not able to take that these orders from South Africa and Zimbabwe, because we know that we can't manage that the amount of. So in terms of intention to basically get more carbonization plants, even the bigger ones, and scale up our production. Because we have realized that the market is very interested in our product. So I think
Thank you, Taboka. In terms of the LED innovations past, what other LED companies are doing, right now as a startup, we are trying to catch up to the rest of the world in terms of innovation. We are not per se going into anything extensive in terms of saying we're going to be bringing something extra to the market. Right now, as a startup, we are trying to basically do what the rest of the world is doing, catch up to the quality that Philips, Duralux, and all the other large giants are doing, because that's what we aspire to be. And when we reach that level is when then now we can start to aspire for more. Not to say that we don't want to ever beat, sorry, not beat them, that's not a good word, surpass them in the future. But right now, that is our actual goal, is just to reach the level in which we can be competitive towards the larger giants in the market, and then thereafter work to surpass them. I hope that answers the question in terms of innovation.
I am coming in because I would like to follow up, just to clarify. I was just wondering, if I am a customer in South Africa, why would I, or in Botswana, why would I buy your light bulb and not a Philips light bulb? That is my question. Is it this regional youth aspect, local, or extremely environmental friendly, or is there anything? That doesn't mean that you have to reinvent the bulb or the LED. I was just wondering, I mean, if I have the option of these two, why would I go for your light bulb? If you could elaborate on that, because your business has been growing fast. So there must be something which sets you apart. Otherwise, the people would just go for Philips and other known companies. Maybe that to clarify my question. If it is just pure success and good marketing, that's also an answer. But yeah, maybe you have a few words on this. Thank you.
Healthy, your mic is muted.
Thank you, Taboka. I think why us? I would like to believe that one, it's a situation of, I think Mr. Bo has said it earlier, is that everything that we do comes back to carbon emissions. If you're gonna buy a Philips bulb, Philips is made in, if I'm not mistaken, it's a German product, if I'm not mistaken, or Swiss, one of the two. You are then sending something across the world in ships that cause pollution and all these other things, as opposed to then just getting a local bulb, which is literally at your doorstep. So one of the other key things that we do market is obviously that we're a local product, and we take pride in that, the fact that we are in the market, we're made homebred and made, which is part of the reason why we've seen so much success. But we don't want that to be our only success. We want our other key aspect of success to be the quality that we're able to produce and bring to the people. But yes, one of our key selling propositions is that, one, we are a local entity and we are for the SADC region, and we want to create a market that we keep our things at home, for lack of a better word. So yes, that is our key marketing point. I hope I'm answering your question, actually.
Thank you so very much. Yes, you have answered my question. Now it's clear. And if you could, sorry, because this is very interesting. We still have this question basically to all three presenters with regard to initial funding. I don't know if you can disclose this, but yes, even if you just started with a few employees, I mean, the initial, financial means which are needed to start this are quite substantial, I believe. And yes, how did this work? And where did you get the initial funds from?
The initial funding.
Sorry to cut you guys short. Maybe if we can have some of the questions answered in the chat box to give time to the other speakers.
Yes, we believe that the discussion, especially on the success stories, is a very important and interesting one, and maybe you don't mind if we continue this for a few minutes. Thank you very much.
We were supposed to have another discussion later in the program, so maybe we can continue that then.
Don't be difficult.
This is understood. Can we still answer the question and then continue? Thank you.
Can we have maybe the three panelists speak on that quickly, and then we can continue?
Okay, I'll start it off. Our initial funding came from our CEO. Our CEO is a venture capitalist. He's one of many businesses. So when he established the Bulb World, he had used his own capital. I think he invested a lot of his income into this company, and hence he has so much heart in it. And then after some time, after experiencing some growth, we then visited CEDA to help us aid in our expansion, which they did. So that is how we've been able to get to where we are today. It was having somebody who had the dream and believed in it and invested literally everything that he has into it. And then from there on, we then asked for aid from the government in terms of CEDA to help us grow further after showing them that we are able to do it on our own accord.
Thank you very much.
Really? Would you like to speak on that as well?
Yes. In terms of when we started the production of the product, charcoal, in terms of funding, of course, we use. I personally use my savings. When we were in school, we got allowance every month. So from that, I think 5 years. One of the money that I used to start this business, and also I got funding from local company with Harari Breweries, which I was one of the start beneficiaries, and then I was awarded a amount of $100,000.
Okay, thank you for that, Rubile. There was a question directed to Tomo.
Thank you, Margaret, for the question. Your question was on what difference do women make in terms of business within the energy sector. I think women have a more clear, let's say, gender perspective when it comes to business and entrepreneurship within the energy sector. We have to be aware of, we need, when it comes to coming with energy solutions, we have to, as women, we're in a better position to recognize the issues related to us that are gender specific, and as well come up with solutions that address these differences. And also, I mean, when it comes to gender, people look at it as a women versus men thing, but we need to realize that it is not. It's about realizing that we have different needs. And I feel like women with that have been successful with that and are able to come up with solutions or business ideas that cater to women's needs. Seeing that also, when we look at it, we are the primary users of energy, especially in households. We are the ones who make energy decisions, as well as purchases related to energy. We've seen previously that other energy companies have really not been paying attention to women's needs, and that has also been they have missed the huge potential market when it comes to that. So I think with women, we're more able to apply a gender perspective when it comes to solutions. And that's why we are able to maybe come up with more innovative solutions when it comes to energy solutions. And I mean, in terms of women in leadership roles within the energy sector, there isn't, or women-led companies or enterprises within the energy sector, there isn't a lot. And that's really why Women in Energy is here, is to also try to help in terms of mobilizing entrepreneurship and coming up with and having to help other women start or play an active role within the energy sector, and also have more women in leadership roles within the energy sector and have successful enterprises. And women like Ohaufi obviously have led the way, and we hope that working with them, they'll be able to hold the ladder for other young women to also partake, in the energy sector. But we also look to other women internationally, such as Pumzile Mlambo, who's also really has been an inspiration on my part, as well as Ms. Nasim Lari, who is the CEO of Lucara Mine. I mean, those are some of the examples of women who've really paved the way for other women and have really shown that it is possible. And that, I guess, those are good examples to show that women are capable in the business sector. And with that, we hope that more women are inspired and are able to, come up with innovative solutions to solve existing problems.
Thank you, Tomo, for that.
Thank you very much.
Please do remember that we do have a question and answer option there, so you can type your questions as we go along and the relevant participants or panelists will answer. I would now like to hand the floor to Dr. Bada, who will be speaking on how BOOST is promoting the sustainable energy transition and the current projects and potential for Botswana leading up to 2050. Dr. Bada?
Okay, hello, good morning. I'm very honored that I am allowed to speak, even though I'm only a man. So thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. The presentation which I'm giving in the next 10 minutes is about how BOOST can promote sustainable energy transition, even after presentations of our entrepreneurs and in the future. So we want to look at a few current projects and actually the potential for Botswana in the renewable energy. So maybe you mentioned in this webinar, we are currently only talking about sustainable energy, and we have a bit left out the term renewable energy. And let us start maybe to look at what is now that difference between renewable and sustainable in the energy sector. So we can make use of the sustainability triangle when we talk about sustainable energy, because it is made up of 3 dimensions: the environmental, economic, and social dimension. And in the current renewable energy perspective, we mostly look at economically environmental viable projects to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, being environmentally friendly, and also being reliable for the users, being of course affordable and economic as a project. So this is currently no problem on a project scale. However, we have a problem on the social side, right? Renewable energy today in Botswana hardly creates value. We have seen projects where now value is already created, but in overall, there's little value creation. And this makes the projects not accessible for people. So people in rural villages, they have little income, they cannot access those technologies, or they cannot access renewable energy, and it is not economically viable for investors to go in such kind of environments where investments have no return on invest. So what we can summarize is that we have a lack of accessibility in rural areas in Botswana. And we see that outside-driven donated PV systems are not sustainable in the long term, because there are no business models coming in place. There's no job creation. And this is exactly where we have to create value in Botswana, and where we have to develop community inclusive and socio-economically viable businesses for transformation to energy supply in rural areas. So exactly here, BOOST has a project where we address the SDG goal number 7, to bring renewable energy to villages and to create business cases which are accessible and which are interesting for private financing. One of the BOOST projects which we are running is the solar network project. In this project, we are together with a team of Ulster University in United Kingdom, with BOOST University, and also with an empowered company in Francistown, with Eunice Hanna, and also with DP Sun and Solarform and other companies in England. So the project develops a PV microgrid, which is fintech based, and then we want to develop, or we are developing an energy trading and battery rental system for the community to have different energy delivery models and reach the community. So in this project, we are developing the community to a distributed energy service company, and therefore we develop the village as a managing energy hub. So the money which will be made in this will be remaining in the village and will help grow the village also on the business side. So we are currently having a scale-up project which is financed by Innovate UK. It is the largest UK funded project, public funded project for renewable energy in Botswana, in Africa actually. And when this is now proved viable, it will be scaled up in and outside Botswana. So now we have also another project in this case where my colleague Professor Einax has a similar project on the energy village, which is currently funded from a LEAP EU project from Long Energy Partnership Europe, and we have submitted another project where we want to develop hybrid renewable energy solutions and have more employment on the biomass preparation for such kind of hybrid renewable energy systems. So these proposals are submitted. We are currently waiting for the answers of European Union. Probably all of you know the plan of Botswana to develop to a knowledge economy. As I have illustrated here, this transformation of the society in Botswana is going away like in other societies. And in Botswana, we are currently in a resource-based economy, and we need to diversify the economy, which our alumni students already demonstrated. And eventually the target in this century, we want to reach a knowledge economy, so to surpass the resource-based economy and have a strong society in Botswana. Now, on the other hand, what is happening globally, we are just, as we speak, in the middle of a transformation of our global energy system. So this is a transition of the way that energy is produced and distributed and consumed. This transformation is a massive transformation, is like a similar thing what happened on the planet when humans went into industrialization with the steam engine. The same thing is happening as we speak. So why is it happening? Because we want to reach, and we will reach, a decarbonized power sector. In 2050, we have 85% of the electricity production globally from renewable energies, and we will have 65% the total final energy consumption based on renewable energies. And that's why globally a lot of trends or mega trends are appearing, which is the digitalization, the supply chains are changing. We have more production of RE in Botswana. We will have more sector coupling, and we will have complete new business models. And something which is also arising is a green hydrogen economy. So in 2050, the economy in the globe will be run from hydrogen and not anymore from coal and oil. And global alliances are in preparation of solutions in this regard. So you might think now, yeah, this is very much in the future, is 2050, but indeed it is already quite in present, right? And what is needed for Botswana is that we have to connect now the knowledge society with this global transformation and see how is Botswana fitting in and where are we positioning Botswana and our country to have this best fit in this transformation. So why is it already in the present? Because for 2050, the pipeline networks for hydrogen, for example, are already mapped. There are clear drafts available from the African Hydrogen Partnership, from the Desertec initiative in Dubai, We had last November a presentation from Desertec, Mr. Mattes from Dubai here in Botswana, who talked about this big hydrogen change, where hydrogen will reach cost parity with gray hydrogen already in 2030. The core of the European research strategy is hydrogen, only hydrogen, hydrogen economy. And when you see here in the map, we have already planned a liquid organic hydrogen carrier pipeline from Botswana, Gaborone through the Trans-Kalahari Highway to Walvis Bay is already foreseen. And liquid organic hydrogen carrier is a safe solution to transport hydrogen in a pipeline-based system, which would then go on the ship and maybe supply the world with fuel in the decarbonized transport sector. So this is, of course, in the future, but we have to start now looking at it. And we have to start now because the world sees sub-Saharan Africa as the powerhouse for this global energy system in the future. And SASCAL has here a project in Botswana, which is led by Mr. Obakeng Setamo in Gaborone, and my colleague Ras and we are also part of that project. And what we are doing in that H2 Atlas Africa project, which is coming from SASCAL, we are developing a decision support tool for decision makers so that we can have a clear roadmap to a green hydrogen-based economy. And all the departments and companies in Botswana, they are supporting us to gather this information and creating the Atlas. So when this is done, there will be a design of pilot green hydrogen plants. We are not the first in this regard. The green hydrogen topics are already going now in industrialization projects in Morocco and Saudi Arabia, where massive investments are happening as we speak. So this is now a transformation, and I wanted to emphasize to us here that transformation is a very massive change. I have mentioned before, it is like the industrialization which has happened in the end of the 19th century with the steam engine in UK. And now we have a similar change. So we're not talking about radical changes like internet or iPhone. We really talk about a complete transformation of the globe. And this changes the thinking, right? So it changes the thinking of all of us, and that's why it's now difficult to imagine, but it is now essential to connect the knowledge-based society in Botswana with that global transition and create a picture of Botswana's future in this global transformation. So with more long-term thinking, it will be able for Botswana to tap that potential. And we need to create something like a Botswana Sustainable Energy Research and Innovation Roadmap, so that a small country like Botswana, we can give more focus to our research and development in this big global trend. So when we do that, it will become possible for us to not only be an energy supplier or think the whole renewable energy in terms of energy supply, but to think to become an energy exporter of renewable energy. First contracts have been made in that regard with the 5 gigawatt Namibia-Botswana deal driven from Washington. And we will also be able to actually develop Botswana as an economically attractive site, right? So there will be, when we have electricity available on a reasonable cost in the country from renewable energy, this will be only way when we will be able to also make products from copper, because this will be a decisive advantage for Botswana. And we have the opportunity with BIOST and other organizations in Botswana to even develop the country into a technology developer, because There will be a focus on digitalization and upcoming new technology fields where we can tap in. But this needs a long-term planning and a long-term thinking of the country. So I want to end my presentation with a saying which was once said from energy minister in Saudi Arabia in the 70s. I have rewritten it and made it a bit fit. So we can say we as humans, we left the Stone Age. The Stone Age did not end because we ran out of stones, but actually also we can say the fossil age is ending long before the world runs out of coal. We will have in the future coal and oil in the ground just as we have today the stones. Thank you, Kerle Bocha, danke for the presentation, and I give back to Taboka.
Thank you, Dr. Bada, for your very informative presentation. Just a reminder again to the speakers, we are short of time, we're already behind time. So if you can try keep your presentation to the allocated time, and to the participants, we are extremely sorry for running beyond time. I would now like to hand over to Mr. Marcel Grella, who's the head of Economic and Development Cooperation with SADC from the German Embassy, to give us a presentation titled "The Prevent Waste Alliance is the Circular Economy a Utopia?" Mr. Grella?
Thank you very much. Let me quickly share my screen. Okay. So now you have to tell me if you can hear me and if everyone can see the presentation. Please kindly confirm.
Yes, we can see your presentation and you are audible.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for the introduction. I will be very brief. As mentioned, my name is Marcel Grella, Head of Economic and Development Cooperation at the German Embassy. I won't give a technical presentation. I will introduce the Prevent Waste Alliance to you, but my main goal is just to give you a little bit food for thought on this whole topic on circular economy, which became very en vogue and is now mentioned in basically every paper document, also on political levels. And we decided to title this short input from our side is Circular Economy and Utopia. And to answer this in one word, yes, it is, but so was flying to the moon. And it doesn't matter if it is an utopia or not. It is about approaching solutions and basically working towards the goal. So even if we can't accomplish a circular economy, as by definition, it is also worth trying and needed that we try, as everyone has mentioned and the presenters have mentioned before. What I would like to do, I was told that the participants, I see there are 104 left, thank you very much, that they, if we can unmute them, because I would like to start with challenges of circular economy. I mean, circular economy in a sense of the definition means that we will work in closed loops, meaning that we won't use primary resources over and over and over again, but actually use the primary resources once, keep them in the loop, reuse them, and thus reduce everything, which is our waste, our emissions, and save the planet Earth, basically. So if that is possible, I would pose 4 questions. Circular economy can, of course, only be achieved if we reduce what we are wasting at the moment and what we are producing and generating. So my initial question would be to the audience, if that is possible, how many tons of municipal waste do you think we, as the Earth population, generate annually? And by this, I mean only municipal waste. This is not construction waste, which is by far the biggest share. It's not hazardous waste, but basically what you have in your trash bin. And I will wait for 10 seconds because I know that there are volunteers. What is your feeling? What do you think? You know that I was told by the organizers that I don't have so much time, which means that I have I have to continue, and I have 3 questions left. Oh, please, Taboka, let me know if this is a technical problem and everyone is muted, then I quickly go through it. That's also fine. I just wanted to try something.
I think the participants can unmute themselves. So if anyone is up for answering that, please go ahead.
Does anyone want to guess? I know there are many experts here also who have presented before.
The participants can raise their hand and then I can unmute them.
Yeah, we can just, in the interest of time, maybe they can just, you know, unmute them and throw in a few numbers. That just has to take a few seconds. All right, I see maybe that was a little bit ambitious, so I continue. Maybe, yeah, if you can look at the chat box, maybe there are estimates, or you can, of course, put in the chat boxes or in the FAQ box your guesses if you want. So the tons of municipal waste generated annually is actually 2 billion. And this is an amount which is unbelievable. Also, tons of plastic waste entering rivers, the sea, and the ocean annually is 8 million tons. There are figures between 5 and 12. We usually work with 8 million. If we are presenting, this is what we are doing every year. People without basic waste management services. It's a quarter of the world population, 2 billion people. And we are not talking about circular economy solutions or sophisticated sorting facilities. We are just talking about the basic waste management where municipal waste gets collected and then basically dumped at a certain site outside cities or at collection stations, which means the global economy, what we are talking about is we need a circular economy. The global economy has to be circular, but at the moment, and of course, these are also just rough estimates, we face that only 9% of all resources are basically led in a circular economy or in a circular way, which means basically we have a long, long way to go. And why is that so? At political level, and I find that important because we have talked today about technological solutions, market access, but the big but about waste management and circular economy, reusing resources. I mean, what are the challenges and what we are facing? In terms of priority, if you would ask, and we are discussing this also at ministerial and government level, no one would say basic waste management is my #1 priority. All people would say, I need food, I need health services, education, a job, etc. So the priority, although in some countries, waste is such a huge problem, and of course the emissions resulting from there, it will never be the #1 priority. It's just interconnected, and this is how we have basically to deal with that topic. Second issue is it is very, very complex. There is not one solution. Basically, we are talking about a system where all levels have to interact, which means at household level, I have to make the decision and be enabled by my community, municipality, also government, and my education to sort my waste, then that it's collected, then that the facilities and infrastructure is there to recycle it, and then to reuse it again in a technological, sustainable way. And in the end, this has to, this all has to be at a lower cost than using primary resources. Otherwise, it is not possible to actually sustain this. And third, individual versus corporate responsibility. How far can state legislation go? I find it interesting that, for example, which is at the moment, we are trying in the European Union, for example, Rwanda has achieved it and said that they are banning plastic bags, and there are no plastic bags anymore. And I think it's Singapore or Malaysia, if you drop a bubble gum on the streets, it's a $1,000 fine. So you do this exactly once, and then you stop doing this. But of course, this is interfering with rights of individuals. And the question is, how far can a government go? How is the society structured? And what do you accept as a population? And now it's very interesting to see that with Friday for Futures and global warming, and of course the Paris Declaration and negotiations in the last few years, we finally have a dynamic which enables us to at least articulate all these issues and dangers to look ahead. I mean, where we will be. And I'm personally having trouble with, this visions which go beyond 2050, 60, 70. We need them, this is important, but in the end, at that moment, no one of the current legislations will be in charge anymore. So we have to take basically the future into our own hands now at the moment. And why am I saying all this? So we have a huge challenge ahead, and is circular economy an utopia? Probably it is, but there's never an easy remedy. There are just solutions like the presenters like the previous presenters have guided us through, and we can go just one step at a time in the right direction and see how we cope with the challenges today. So just very briefly, because the presentation is titled Prevent Waste Alliance. So what the German government has been doing, the Ministry of Environment and for Economic Cooperation and Development, was to start an initiative and basically bring actors together from private sector, academia, and civil society. And they are working at the moment in 3 working groups: plastic packaging, e-waste, and on framework conditions, which is basically the legislation. And if you are asking me what is the innovative approach of the Prevent Waste Alliance, and I was able to be part of it in the last few years as a senior policy officer in the ministry, and I couldn't believe it, is basically that the actors which are working along the value chain, basically from production until recycling or burning waste to energy or reusing, all products which we are generating as a population, they are hardly sitting at one table. So we are trying to bring national and international actors together and basically facilitate the dialogue. And to give you one example, it was very interesting for me to see in the past 2 years that basically the producers, they think we should solve our problems with technology. And the recyclers are saying, no, the producers, they can just use less packaging. And in the end, these two need to sit on one table and see what is viable. And in the end, such platforms can, and I invite everyone who is here today, and also please, to share this information. Membership is free. All actors, from all different fields are sharing their knowledge. Sometimes we think we need to reinvent the wheel, but this has been done in some part of the world and can be used in another part of the world. And most importantly, while speaking about technology and innovative solutions, I think we must understand that without reduction of our consumption, it's not possible to achieve. Everything which we are trying to achieve is not possible to achieve technologically, but only if we stop using so many primary resources and stop consuming everywhere in the world as much as we do at the moment. Otherwise, there is hardly any chance that we will leave the planet to our children as, we would like to leave the planet to them. I'm stopping at this moment. I'm having 2 more slides, but only in the aftermath, which display basically the products of the Prevent Waste Alliance, meaning what has been developed by the different actors, where are we piloting projects, etc. I believe that this presentation will be shared, it can be shared, and if you have any questions, I think we have a Q&A coming up, so I'm not going into details about projects, but want to tell you that yes, we need innovative solutions, but also we need to understand what our own footprint is individually and as a society. Thank you very much for giving me the time and space.
Thank you very much, Marcel, for this beautiful presentation and the reminder that as much as we will not all be here by 2050 or 2060, it is up to us to act now in order to reach that level of sustainability in order to reduce the greenhouse gases. I would now like to hand over to Her Excellency Margit Helwig-Botte, the Ambassador of Germany to Botswana, to lead us in discussion.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, I think we are almost 1 hour behind schedule, so the organizers will have to decide how much time we have for the discussion. Shall we go ahead as planned with like 20 minutes or so, or would you want to reduce this?
I think
Over
maybe
to
let's
you,
go with 15 minutes, and then we can have the final remarks and conclude the webinar.
Okay, that sounds like a good plan. You would have to help me to hand the floor, to give the floor to those who want to ask questions, because technically I will not be in the position to do so. My suggestion would be, we have two sets of subject actually. We have the, as I would say after listening to Tobias Bader, the Think Big agenda, which is energy and also waste-related topics. And then we have the startup and entrepreneurship-related questions. So my suggestion would be, as it has been a long time already since Gilles and Karen presented, let's get into the energy-related topics first. I would permit myself to ask the first question, but then also ask the others to come in. Maybe we can have 3 questions on that. So my first question would actually go to Gilles and Karen. Gilles said at the end of the day, solar and wind energy is cheaper than fossil energy. Now, how would you, Gilles, and also Karen, convince the Botswana government that wind and solar are indeed cheaper than coal? Because coal is still the most prominent energy used. There's a lot of emphasis on that. And even though hydrogen may be the future, but solar is available here, the government is focused on coal. What would you tell the Botswana government? Why and how should they change to solar? Over to you.
Maybe I will start and I will let Karen complement. I think one of the reason government generally tend to be a little bit afraid of having renewable energy to get into their network. Or when I talk about government, I'm talking more about government entities like utilities, like BPC. And they are a bit afraid, as you know, the German were 25 years or 30 years ago, as the French were, also 15 years ago. And I have seen that in Southeast Asia. Generally, the utilities are a little bit afraid to see, new technology to come, and which by that time were contributing to some instability of the network. Today, the technology has definitely changed, so it's much more grid compatible, as I said in my presentation. And in terms of price, I think the example of Australia is very interesting because it is driving the price down. And I think in many countries now, the bid or the feed-in tariff are showing that the price are definitely lower. So how to convince the government? I think there is a couple of things that they will consider. I think one of the important aspects is carbon tax is probably going to kick in at some stage, and it's going to impact the price of electricity if it's generated from fossil fuels. There is a clear example in South Africa where there is a carbon tax which has been now implemented. And if you look at the 2 main energy companies over there, the big one being Eskom, obviously, they clearly wrote in their annual report of 2019 that all the cost related to carbon tax is going to be transferred to the end customers. So if there is an increase of the electricity price because of carbon tax, it's going to affect the customers. So that's probably one, point where, it's one way of convincing the people. And I think also having more renewable will bring jobs, more jobs and more rural development within Botswana, with jobs in different parts of the countries. And I think this is also another opportunity. I think that the trend of the government is to promote more works. The COVID has gone through many countries, and this is probably one of the reasons which could allow that. And the last point is that whatever the government decide, big mining companies now have also committed to carbon neutrality, and they will shift themselves anyway. So even Botswana and the new copper mine, which are starting operation in Botswana, are for carbon footprint reason starting to implement renewable energy. So I think there is a global move where renewable energy is going to definitely take over fossil fuels.
Thanks, Gilles. I'll jump in there. I think you comprehensively spoke about the large-scale solar. So I'll speak a little bit about the small scale, if that's okay. Just to say that the increase of solar in rural areas, I think Botswana will transition to, because now it makes financial sense. Previously, I think Botswana had gone ahead with some projects on a small scale for small houses within rural areas where it's very expensive. Sorry, thank you for that. It's very expensive for grid infrastructure to reach maybe one house over thousands or hundreds of kilometers. It now makes sense to supply small-scale solar home systems to this. I know Botswana had initially done a program which wasn't very successful, but it was deemed maybe ahead of its time, with the financial and digital infrastructure maybe not in place for payments. And now that is in place, the utilization of the small-scale solar could also increase. So that's an interesting aspect on the affordability, and also technology changes, and the affordability of solar has, I don't know, when I started, I think it was something like 4,000 pula for a 150 watt panel, and now we're looking at about 1,000 pula, so it's a quarter of the price actually. Thank you.
Yeah, I will just add one comment on the small, rooftop solar system, or pumping solar off grid or on grid. I think one important point that I heard from different people here is the initial setup, or the cost of the installation. And if we want to promote and to make sure that there is a strong development, there is a need to have banks to come and to finance through loans, so either through the national development banks or private commercial banks, to help the people to make the shift and start to invest into solar energy system. I think it's very important, and then they can repay with the savings either in diesel or the savings in energy, bill that they can do. They can repay, the loan.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I mean, that are very convincing arguments, I think. Before I come up with another question, I would still like to ask Tabuka whether there are questions from the audience, whether somebody would like to come in. We're still on the general energy level, and after that, I would like to move to startup-related questions.
Currently, there's nothing, but I'd just like to remind people to use the question and answer option or the chat box to ask questions if any come up.
Okay, then let's leave the chat box at the chat box. I'm not a digital native, and I'm still very much focused on talking and listening to people. So I'm not going to look into the chat box. But let me hammer another question to whoever would like to come in now, and that is off-grid solutions for rural areas. I find this very convincing. As we had discussed a little bit about waste as well, I was wondering whether there would also be possibilities to develop something like not off-grid, but local solutions for better waste management. I discovered when I traveled through Botswana, there are still quite a number of places where apparently waste collection doesn't work, and there is a need for a better waste management in the rural areas. Is this something which is on the screen of people here? Is this something which somebody in the audience, maybe Mr. Bada would like to answer this, finds acceptable and feasible? And would this not be an opportunity to also create jobs? Over to anybody.
I think I can answer. I don't know if I have an answer to your question, but I can maybe give an idea on what I experience. Yes, definitely this could be job creating, especially when we then think of recycling. Because in the beginning, when I moved to Botswana, or when I came to Botswana many years ago, and still it's the same situation today, for example, the batteries, we don't even have to talk about renewables. It is different than in Germany, right, where batteries can only be handed back within the supply chain in a very controlled mechanism because it's highly poisonous, right? In Botswana, all the small batteries, every battery is thrown in the dustbin, going to the landfill, and is contaminating amounts of land. However, I have been talking with other colleagues in Germany, and it is indeed necessary when we have a collection, or when we bring a collection, for example, for materials like batteries in place, that we have an answer for the solution of recycling. Because if we only collect them and then we just like accumulate the amount of poison in one place, which will be maybe another bigger problem. So, but in general about the waste recycling, at BIUST, we have had and we have engagements, the Mechanical Energy Department very much in partnership with the Chemical Engineering Department, where we looked at the recycling of waste tires in the country. So we have applied to German funding, which was not granted. And probably because there was a high competition on funding side. However, there would be possibilities available, technologies where we can not only recycle, but we can actually have a waste to resource process to win exclusive oil, gas, and black carbon from the local tires. We would partner with Botswana and mining companies, but also then for car tires. So currently it is also a problem now to have those ideas, to have concepts ready in the country. We also have engineers ready, we have graduates ready to work, but there is then a connection problem for funding or to bring this up.
Thank you very much. I think that is a very interesting aspect, funding, because that's actually the point I would have wanted to raise anyway now. I know that in a country like Botswana and also many other African countries, when it comes to funding, those who have ideas immediately look to the development partners, and we heard that one startup was funded by SIDA, apart from the venture capital they got. I know this from other contexts as well. You're always looking into funding from other countries. I'm actually wondering if this is the right approach. It may be okay for countries who do not have the means to finance something, but here I actually do not really see this. And from my experience, from the time I spent in India, of course, India is very different from Botswana, but still, there are possibilities to involve the private sector. And I actually see a win-win situation between the private sector, maybe thinking of the diamond mines, and startups who are able to have creative solutions for some problems the diamond mines may have. And if the mining companies are obliged to improve their carbon footprint, they may have an interest in working with creative minds who can help them do this. Now, this is my question now. How can the private sector, I know it's small in Botswana, but still there is capital in the country. How can the private sector be involved into funding, whether it is for startups, whether it is for off-grid solutions for villages and rural areas, whether it is for recycling solutions of waste in rural areas, which would bring us a little step forward to the circular economy, maybe. So, what is the role of funding here, and where can those with ideas get money from, apart from development partners? Over to anybody.
Before we have someone answering that, Gio has had his hand raised, so I think has a question as well to ask.
Mainly for Tobias, but it's in some way related to the question that you're raising, Margit. I have seen that you have created a DESCO with your small solar project network in the northern of Botswana. So for the DESCO, I understand it's an energy service company. So you are investing and then you are selling electricity in order to cover some part of the investment and some part of the operational cost. Is that right? And so had you some issues with regulatory aspects? So did you have to have an IP, a license for distribution and sale of electricity? Is it possible? How does it work? And how did you find the capital for it? Because this could be a way of creating jobs, and this is a way of having remote villages, off-grid villages to develop a business in some way, and this could apply for solar. After it could apply for water also. In some parts there is no water. So do you have any points on this?
Okay, the DESCO is not yet established, but we are in the process of establishing the DESCO in the village. So actually, the funds for establishing the DESCO, but actually now for establishing the system is donor-based. So it will be not yet reflecting costs in the business model. However, it is looked at, and we are now trialing this, and we'll look at the cost side when we have now the measurements and the first experiences with that kind of business model. But as we speak, it is not yet implemented. It's just in the process, and the investment costs for the system in the village is currently donor-based from Innovate UK.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Because I really think that this could be a driver of jobs. So, for example, to have a solar charging station in remote villages, where some people do the investment, so it could be private capital, and there is money, I agree with you, in Botswana, but you need to have a business model, and I think it's really important to make sure that the regulatory authorities are, enabling these spaces to happen. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, can I get some views on my questions about funding? Okay, so the idea to involve the private sector and the diamond companies, it's nothing which is of interest, or it wouldn't work, or what do you think about this?
Maybe I can give. There may be also other people in this panel who could answer the question. So I just wanted to say that there is, since years, a collaboration starting with Botswana and BUST. However, I think there could also be support needed in organizing that collaboration and that funding, because we have made 3 years ago a plan on Green Diamonds project, but still I think it is not yet decided on how the funding will come and what will be funded. And so what we have been recognizing that companies that have not a dedicated research and development department find it difficult to have a collaborative research rather than just a project research on the innovation side. So it depends also on the structure of the company, and maybe it is a process, but the process has been started and there is a huge hope in that process. BUST has for several areas produced project proposals. They have been discussed, they have been presented to Botswana, they have been going to different levels, and some of the projects they run, they might not be large funded. Funding and partial private funding from here to have the synergies and the support, because we may not forget that products or facilities which will be implemented here and which will have a market in Botswana, if you want, these are also production sites where German companies or international companies will benefit. So maybe there needs to be funding models be implemented where things go together.
There was a hand raised, Mr. Tunde. Would you like to come in?
Yes, thank you very much for that question. It is very pertinent. The support from industry will be needed both now and in future. Obviously, looking for funding from outside may not be sustainable. However, the government will need to come in either to make laws that will make industries to invest in research, development, and innovation. That's one. And you're also right that companies would like to reduce their carbon footprint. The good example is Botswana. We've mentioned Botswana several times, but there are other organizations too who are making effort to reduce their carbon footprint. And as they see the return on investment, they'll be able to invest more in local development of capacity. So yes, the industry would need to be involved in the development, training of the young people, and also to create jobs. So the PPP is also another option that can be used. So in general, industry will need to be involved in all these areas. Thank you.
Ms. Karen?
Yes, I just wanted to add that commercial banks are an obvious choice for financing projects, but I think it's really important that we focus on capacity building within these banks, especially in the renewable energy space. It's a challenge that we've come across from the solar sector perspective. The banks are a little hesitant maybe to fund some projects, and also putting together bankable projects is what the industry struggles with. So these are two aspects that need to be addressed to be able to access these finance tools locally. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have Mr. Rodrigo and then Ms. Patricia.
Thank you very much, Your Honorable Ambassador. And I just want to add that, yes, I agree that the industry should be very much involved. But I think the major problem here is that the culture of private sectors getting involved in certain things, for example, of development or of other investments, is still not there. So even now, for example, Botswana is the biggest industry in the country, and we are having collaboration with Botswana in terms of research and development, but it takes a long time for the project to start because the culture is not there, and we're still grasping from how to do things. So I agree with Professor Ladran to say that indeed there is a need for government to step in so that this kind of culture of getting the industry involved in other things, in projects, in the research and development, will be infused and encouraged and will be realized in the future. Thank you.
Ms. Patricia now?
Yes, thank you, Madam Ambassador. I just wanted to add on to the funding topic that we're discussing now and the role of the private sector. And also a point that was raised about the commercial banks. I think when it comes to the private sector, ultimately we need to sell them the story that whatever products and services that we are developing and whatever skills and competencies we are producing here at BOOST, they eventually are going to end up there in the private sector and they are therefore beneficiaries. So we need to start bringing them closer so that they see that they are also part of the story, and so that they can also see the benefit in investing in some of the things that we want to do. Now, in terms of perhaps, shall I say, reluctance from commercial banks, even maybe perhaps some investors to support us, I think we need to understand that from their perspective, it's quite risky to put money into something that you're not really sure about what's going to happen at the end of the day. I know that commercial banks readily finance things that they know that they will get quick return on. So when we think about what the government is doing to try to close this market failure, because we have to understand that if the private sector is not ready to step into this sector or step into this role to finance, then the government has to do something. Now, when you look at CEDA, CEDA is a citizen entrepreneurial development agency, which has been set up by the government to give patient funding to people who would like to go into business. Now, what has been happening is that they've been funding those businesses, when they are ready to go to the market. But now what we're trying to do with them is talk about innovation financing. So this is a new area, and we hope that as we are able to work with CEDA more to refine this, there's going to be more appetite from commercial banks and other investors to invest in research development all the way to entrepreneurship, taking the products to the market, as well as scaling up whatever businesses will be there. I think if you look at what happened in some of the sectors with CEDA, CEDA, for example, was funding agricultural businesses, whereas the commercial banks were a bit reluctant. But after some time, when they see that CEDA is doing well and people have begun paying back the money, and they're actually now able to revolve those funds to other potential business people in the agricultural sector, they have now opened up. They have now opened up even in the commercial banks to be willing to invest and put money into these sort of things. So I believe you know, once we are able to do a lot with CEDA, we have a partnership with CEDA, and we're definitely going to unpack ways in which we can reap the most from this innovation financing. And once the businesses are out there and they are scaled up, there will be more appetite to lend to these types of businesses. That is the contribution I wanted to make. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So I understand from what we discussed now that in Botswana, we would need some sort of angel investor culture, because the famous angel investors are always those who give like the first stage startups a chance to develop their ideas. I know that I'm also taking the privilege to exceed time now. I would like to throw one last question to the startups, because I remember Ms. Ogaufi mentioned they had venture capital from one of their founders. And then again, CEDA funding. Now, I mean, all those who spoke, what is your wish in terms of funding? What would you like to see as support for your enterprise? With whom would you like to cooperate in the future to scale your business and to extend your scope on the market? Are there any preferences? Who is the angel you would want to have with you?
Maybe just to step in quickly to remind the speakers to keep their time short as they answer the questions.
Is this question to the innovators out there that are here, or is it also to us? Because I have something I'd like to say in terms of what we'd like to see here in BEUST.
Then you say what you have to say, and then we throw it again to Ms. Ogaufi from the bulb world and to what was this? The charcoal guy.
Yes, in terms of what we'd like to see happening here at the center, we'd like to partner with some investors who'd like to help us develop a business incubation center. Ideally, our students should start on their projects. Those who really want to go into these STEM-related businesses, they need to start quite early, and then they get incubated so that by the time they leave the university, they have the skills and competencies and the confidence to go out there and scale up the business. If you look at the university, we have this land, this huge land, about 2,500 hectares around here, and we could easily set up with the right funding such a business incubation center. I know there's also a mini technology park, and we also would like, it would be nice if we had a maker's lab, a kind of lab where students could actually go and test out the ideas and do some prototyping. I think this would really, really help. So not only funding when the business is out there, but right from the grassroots when the students are here. We need that kind of support. And because the university relies on government funding, and we know that there's all these constraints, including the COVID, the budget has been cut, so we are really severely constrained. So I think in terms of how the embassies could help us in terms of partnering with other people out there, investors and other universities, so that we can actually do a much better job than we are actually doing. Thank you, Madam Ambassador.
Anybody else who would like to come in? Ms. Ogaufi, maybe?
Yes, thank you. For us per se, we don't really want to say we need any form of funding. I'm just speaking from our side of things. We don't want funding, we want support. We need support in order to grow in terms of buying power. So right now, what we're advocating towards is that we don't want to get any more money from anybody else at this point. We just want to be supported in terms of actually purchasing the product. That money will then work itself back to produce more money, and then we can grow from there. Because it is a sustainable, it's sustainable in the long run of saying if we get money and we're able to produce products and sell products, create a cycle such that the money is able to grow itself and in turn grow the business. for as much as we are in all these retailers, we are not where we want to be in terms of our market penetration. So I think the only bid from our end is just for more support in terms of supporting our local products that are produced here and making sure that our industrialization goes according to plan. Because if we don't support ourselves, then who will? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we will slowly have to wind up. So if there are no urgent remarks and questions anymore, I would like to do this now.
We have one hand up. Maybe if we can answer that and then have the closing remarks.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you for giving me the opportunity to make a comment. I would just like to touch on something here, which I think we should also look into. That is an issue on green banking. That is, as you're thinking of how we can lure in investors, there's a new trend that is currently growing in terms of how the financiers make their investments. That is green banking. That's something that they are really interested in terms of how they look into how the climate change has affected the environment and all that. So most of the private sectors, that is the private sector banks, are developing these climate strategies and diverse green financial instruments to seize the business opportunities. But the challenges is that although several banks have demonstrated their leadership and financing green on climate projects, the green portfolio of most banks is still very low. And the climate-related risks are not yet fully assessed and factored into the current valuation of assets. So I think green banking is a new concept or a new trend that most financiers are interested in. And even for those who are looking to be financed, that's something that they need to look into, because most of these financial institutions, they are interested in green banking, and it is an important element to consider when you apply for financial assistance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a very important aspect, I think. And okay, let me slowly come from the discussion to the conclusion and my final remarks. There are at least two important takeaways for me from this event. So one is what Ms. Patricia said, that the embassies have a job to do here. So I understand that the embassies can be some sort of a missing link between the industries, maybe from our countries, but maybe also in generally, between governments, between university, and we can use our own networks to help develop entrepreneurship. I mean, you know, this is a high-flying statement. It is not so easily done, but I think we all have a lot of contacts here in the business world, in the political world. So let's use this for the benefit of entrepreneurship, of innovation centers, and if possible, also for the sake of the startups. My second takeaway is, I can't remember who said this, that Botswana does not have a culture to invest in startups. Now, a culture is something which you cannot create just very quickly, but it needs nurturing. But this is all something where I think the academia and maybe also the diplomatic world can play a role, like wherever we go, raise this issue of startups and of funding and of nurturing business ideas. Now, coming to startups, I think there are those like Bulb World, who is effectively established in the market. They know how to find their way now. So they are not these stage one startups anymore, but they are fully fledged enterprises already. But for those who are not yet there and want to get there, I think there is also this, I mean, the need for more, for mentoring, for training, for, I mean, being able to be a fully fledged enterprise one day. And this is also something where I think we can all join forces. And when I say all, I mean governments / embassies, the business world, universities from all of our countries. So if we can create a hub for that, I think that would be a great idea. And let's also go a step back and ask, why are we doing this? And that brings me back to what Gilles Beau said at the beginning. I didn't say it, but it was in one of his slides, very tiny print, so I had to copy it. And it said, we do not inherit land from our parents, we do not inherit land from our parents, we borrow it from our children. And I think this is a very nice picture, because this is actually why we shouldn't continue to behave the way we do it. Remember, my final remarks have the title, Why Should We Change the World? So we should change the world exactly because parents don't have the right to leave a ruined planet to their kids. So that's why we have to change the way we consume and produce energy, and also the way we deal with waste. I think at this moment in time, we can only say that whatever we do to save the planet, whether it's preventing waste, whether it's going into green energy, it must go hand in hand with green jobs. So green jobs meaning you have to have a clever business idea. We heard some of them today. We have to go green in our economic thinking, and we have to buy local. This is another thing we may have learned, that producing costs via flying, via using energy, getting from A to B, it is not okay for the environment. And remember, the pandemic has taught us one thing, and that is the moment you fly less, the climate will improve. It may not be the way forward forever, but going local is also something which we should do. Now, I do not want to summarize this discussion because there was just too much substance, too much food for thought. But I would like to wind up by giving you a quote. And I'm not having a PowerPoint presentation. I will not put it on the screen, but I will only read it out to you the way I would have done had we been in a group together in a conference room. Now, this quote, maybe some of you know it. It is something which Carl Sagan, the American astronaut who was one of the first people who surrounded the Earth in the Voyager space shuttle, what he said when he looked at the Earth. And the Earth, from his perspective, was a tiny little blue dot somewhere in the universe. And now this is what he said, and I quote, "Look again at that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you've ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor, explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on a mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam. The Earth is the only world ever known so far to harbor life. There's nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. Visit? Yes. Settle? Not yet. Like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand. It has been said that astronomy is a humbling and character-building experience. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for that. It was a beautiful discussion and wonderful way to end today's presentations. Apologies again for going an hour over time, but I think we all enjoyed the wonderful presentations and discussions that we had today. I would now like to hand over to Professor Makepe to give us the vote of thanks and closing remarks. Thank you all.
Thank you, Taboka. I'm sure all of us here this morning will agree that the webinar was a very successful webinar. We had at one point more than 120 people that were present. And I'm sure we've all learned a lot from the interactions and presentations that were given. I would like to, first of all, begin by thanking the two ambassadors, Ambassador Lawrence, I don't know the names, Lawrence Bow and Majid Bote, for gracefully agreeing to be part of the program this morning. We really appreciate it because we know that you are very busy people. So your presence here and your inputs in the discourse was very helpful. And I'm sure our students and alumni and staff who are here have been enlightened by the presentations. I would also like to thank Gilles Beau and Marcel Brella for their inputs this morning. I also don't want to forget our alumni, BUST alumni. You know, at BUST, we really do everything possible to try to make sure that we graduate students that are not only strong when it comes to the core technical skills, but also the soft skills that they're going to need when they're out there in industry. And I'm sure from the three former students that have presented here today, we can all tell that they are really doing a good job out there. They are representing us well and really have gone into the world of business and are really well on their way to changing the economic landscape of this country. I was happy to see that the various products and services that they're producing within this sector are actually out there in any shop that you can actually walk into. Save Right, you can find those charcoals. I'm sure some of us have already started using those for some of our barbecues. It is really refreshing to see these kinds of successes. And I hope that this also will encourage the students that are still here with us at BUST to see that it's possible. You know, when you leave BUST, it should be possible for you to find a job. If you can't and you'd like to start a business that is STEM related, these alumni that are here have really shown the way. They've shown the light on how this can be done. And we continue to try our best to improve our offerings here at the center to make sure that you will have all the entrepreneurial skills that you will need to once you're out there. Presently, we've just developed a certificate in entrepreneurship. So hopefully we'll get to a point where not only will students graduate with a science or engineering degree, but also with a certificate in entrepreneurship that will empower them and give them the know-how to actually hit the ground running when they're out there. And going further, we're looking into eventually offering postgraduate programs and having this business incubation that I mentioned earlier on. These are all plans that we hope to do, and we hope that current students will benefit from that. And those who are out there who need assistance here and there in terms of whatever challenges they're facing, the Center for Entrepreneurship is always here to help out in any way we can. With those few remarks, colleagues, I just would like to also thank our esteemed Vice Chancellor, who, you know, actually I should have thanked him first since he's my boss, but you know, I forgot to do that initially. A very big thank you to you, Prof, for gracing this event today and also giving us our welcoming remarks. With that, I would like to say that thank you, and we hope that next time we have this kind of interaction, you'll be also willing to participate, and we'll be showcasing more successes, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Many thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. The best of success.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.